Hey guys, Walt Wagner here with Tactical Application Vehicles, and today is one of the most special walk around videos I think we've done. We are finally doing the Ranger Goat. This is our company truck, and there's a story behind this truck. We are here in beautiful Moab, Utah right now. It's May, early May, and the weather's absolutely gorgeous, so we figured what better time to finally go ahead and do our walk around. For those of you that don't know already, this was my cousin's truck, and it was bone stock. We were going to build it together a little bit before we started the company, and he never got the chance to. He passed away unexpectedly, and it was weighing heavily on my heart to kind of go ahead and finally build this. So when the timing was right, went ahead and bought the truck from his wife, and we named it after him, the Ranger Goat. That was his nickname, and it stuck, and this has been basically the face of our company and the validation tool for everything that we do, and it's been working out really great for us. We use it as a daily driver, and we've been all over the place with this, and there's a lot of spots. Many of you might have seen it, but figured this would be probably the best opportunity to finally go through with a walk around video on this, as it's about 98% finished at this point and still in our fleet of company vehicles. So kind of starting from the front, we'll just do it down and dirty here and talk about our lighting. As many of you know, we do love to run the Baja Designs LP series lights. This particular configuration with the LP9 in white being a very, very bright light with 9 diodes, hence the LP9, but you also have the diodes off to the sides. So as a white light that casts a tremendous amount of useful light down the trail or even at high speed. The LP6 next to it in amber works. I probably use the ambers more than the whites all the time. I mean, it's incredibly effective in the snow or even just approaching traffic at night if you're way out in the desert, kind of where we tend to end up. It's not too overbearing for approaching traffic, and you can see them and shut them off. Moving kind of down a little bit, you can see the come up sealed Gen 2 remote solenoid winch. It's a 12.5 thousand pound winch with a synthetic line, and we're running the Factor 55 Ultra Hook and Fairlead, Haas Fairlead. We tend to kind of hide the control box away under, behind the grill and things like that, and put the plug, the mechanical plug or the physical plug mount up underneath or out on the face of the bumper where you can get to it, because this is a wireless remote winch. You can run 2 different types of remotes on this. The bumper itself is a completely custom bumper. At the time, we were having a hard time finding a bumper for the second gen truck that would do kind of what I wanted it to do. So we kind of hastily had to make this. We modified the frame slightly because there was some material in there that I didn't really feel like we needed. So we boxed the frame in certain spots. We are still utilizing the factory crumple zones and everything like that, not affecting that, but kind of using the bumper itself as a home for the vital components, the winch, the recovery equipment, the lights and things like that. And we kind of closed it off with some ABS on the top, and it's been working out really well for us. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount of approach angle for this, and it's kind of does everything we need it to do, allowing plenty of airflow through the grill with the super cool triple aught design, little hood emblem there, grill emblem there. That there's a lot of work we've been doing with triple aught design in the past, but we've got an intercooler, an extra transmission cooler in the radiator that we need to get a lot of air to, so didn't want to impede that too much. Kind of moving up just a little bit, the headlights, I know people are going to ask. That's just something that I was just looking for, a cleaner, more subdued light. The factory headlights kind of started to melt over time, and that's the cleanest, most subdued light I could find. It's made by Spider, so it's a lot of you have them out there. I've seen them around. The hood on this truck actually had the hood scoop on it, and I didn't like the hood scoop because I wanted to be able to see down over my hood when we're climbing things, and so I traded it to my painter at the time for a 4-cylinder Tacoma hood with no scoop on it, and I really like it. So it does the trick. You can see down over the hood real nice. We did run lights on the ditch light brackets. They're CBI. and we took the lights off because I have other plans for that. I think I'm going to mount an antenna on that, and then just kind of leave it there for antennas instead, because we don't listen to FM radio or anything, so we use it for radio antennas. The snorkel, we've gotten a ton of questions about. This is actually a 4Runner TJM snorkel. Because the fenders, the McNeil Racing fenders, are, we trim and fit and do a lot of things to these fenders to make them look the way we want them to, with different bumpers. Different bumpers terminate at the corners differently from each other, and we try to match the lines of the fenders to the bumpers the best we possibly can to make everything fit and look clean. So with that being said, we can trim and fit the snorkel to fit down inside the fender, and this particular snorkel is designed to dump straight into the fender well instead of run along the top of it. So with the A-pillar angle of the windshield there on the A-pillar being so similar to the 4Runner, I was able to sort of clock it and mount it to where the lines would match up, and then everything else at the base of the snorkel is hidden. So it works out really good. We've been using it for a while now. It's strong, doesn't really get in the way. It's not real, you know, doesn't have a big scoop at the top of it. It just kind of seems to be working pretty good for us. And then the inner fender liners is the very first rendition that we've ever done. A good friend of mine made those for us out of sheet metal, and they've been working extremely well. It's just really hard to make sheet metal inner fender liners. So we make them out of ABS now, as you've seen on a lot of our other trucks. And these have been doing so well, we just never changed them out. Never really needed to. Getting into the suspension, this setup is what we were calling our stage 3. It's basically a stage 3 is there to address every weak link we've found in the Toyota platform. On the Tacoma platform, and the amount of suspension travel we wanted to support a heavier load, not necessarily built for speed, more for just our suspension articulation and stability. You know, the stage 3, this particular one is the plus 3.5 long travel from Total Chaos. So it's 3.5 inches wider per side than a stock truck would be. That's why that's how we're able to run such low lift heights and a 37-inch tire, because it pushes your tire that much further away from your frame. And we can keep our control arms as flat as we can to where we still have enough compression travel and enough extension travel to where the truck is balanced really well without being jacked way up in the air. It's an absolute pleasure to drive this truck everywhere, off-road and then daily drive on the highway. It's very, very comfortable. The shocks and coilovers, the triple bypass shock it's a 2.5 from King, and all of our suspension, all of our coilovers and shocks are custom valved for what the truck's going to do. The suspension is literally the last thing we consider when we're doing these trucks for people, because we want to know how it's going to be used. The suspension's job is there to suspend the truck off of the ground and off of its bump stops. So when we get a lot of questions about how much lift we get and this and that, and it's a legit question, but we don't even really know how much lift there is, physical lift, because you're getting a lot of lift out of the tire too. In the suspension, there's not really a great way for us to measure that, because we're changing so many other factors in there, control arm length and this, and the coilover height and length and all that stuff. So we really just set it up to balance itself. So we're just going to start telling people there's zero lift that we put into these trucks. It's just a system that we've put together to work right, and it's as simple as that. So if you see a truck that we built that's running around on 33s or 35s or 37s, then not really sure how much lift there is in there compared to other kits. You were probably around 2.5 inches of lift. If you were to take a coilover kit and adjust the coilover up to a certain amount of lift height, then that's the closest you could probably get to on lift height. So we try not to lift anything over what would normally be like a 2.5 inch suspension on other brands. So this truck, for the coilover, we're running a 2.5 inch diameter King coilover and a 700-pound coil spring on this. And all of these have high-speed adjustment valve on them, which is pretty is very effective when your suspension is going to cycle quickly, and you can close that high-speed valve gate down some. Then it really helps control a heavier load in a truck. Even if you're on a trail and you're not pre-running something, it's very effective. If you drop down off of something and your suspension collects really quickly, that's where it comes in really handy. Kind of rounding out the front drivetrain and suspension, we're running an RCV axle, which is also the 3.5 inch longer than stock axle. RCV Pro Series axles on these, and a 529 gear ratio from Nitro Gear, and we are running an ARB air locker in the front. I think one of the things we'll be changing up is putting an Eaton e-locker front and rear on this truck, just to eliminate some of the potential issues with air lines and seals going bad and things like that inside the locker. So we'll probably make that shift here pretty soon, and but that kind of rounds out the drivetrain and suspension. For lighting in here though, we're running the Baja Designs Rocklights. We kind of place them in an area to where you could, when they're on, we're out here in the bright sun, but when they're on at night, it shines the light exactly where you need it on the ground to negotiate over a rock or a root or rut or something around some of your vital components around your wheel and hub area. And one other thing that I like to do in a lot of these, the reason I like to have an exposed winch drum is so you can see your drum. So at night we have a rock light inside the grill that is shining straight down onto the drum, so you can quickly just glance at your drum and see what's going on. If you hear something weird going on, if there's a knot or something in your winch line, you can kind of see what's going on there. For skids, we're running RCI off-road aluminum skids, and we've bashed those pretty good out here in Moab before. And if you bend a skid, any skid plate's going to bend. I don't care who makes it, you're going to bend it if you hit it hard enough. So with the aluminum skid plates, they're very, very lightweight, and I've come down pretty hard on something and bent one of the skids, and it protected my exhaust. So I was able to just unbolt it, bend it back on a workbench, and then put it back into service, and it's good to go. So I've been very happy with all the RCI off-road skids. Wheels and tires on this have been working out really good for us. We've been running 37-inch tires on this truck since we first built it, and this particular set is the Yokohama Geolandar MT, and we've been running these for quite a while now. Started a project with Multicam last year, and started working with Yokohama as well on that truck. So figured we'd try these in a 37, and as you can see right here, they're aired down to about 18 psi, and they're nice and soft. We can go down a little lower usually, especially on the Method 704 wheel. This is a Method 704 in titanium, and it's the Trail Series wheel, so you've got that bead grip technology inside the wheel that really, really holds the bead of these tires. So we could run that tire way down and side load it and never really have to worry about it popping off the bead on the inside or the outside bead. On the inside the spokes there, you can see the big brake kits we're running on these trucks. That's the SOS Performance big brake kit, running StopTech billet calipers and StopTech rotors, and that's a 6-piston caliper in the front, and it's really, really great. Loving the brakes on these trucks. All right, in the engine compartment, we've done a lot of different things in here, but I like the way everything is finally set. And everyone's engine compartment that we build may be slightly different depending on what they need. But this, as you can see, this thing's dirty. It gets used a lot, and we've run this supercharger, the Magnuson supercharger in this truck, everywhere, down into Baja, all the way down to Cabo when we were on trail emissions, and very high altitudes. And what you'll see there is a URD pulley. It's a slightly smaller pulley because we live at about 7,000 feet above sea level. So we will see anything from sea level to, say, 12 or 13,000 feet, depending on what trip we're on, all in the same trip. And having a slightly smaller pulley allows us a little bit more boost, slightly more boost, and where we are constantly. So if the truck where we live feels really torquey, really nice, has a lot of power to get up and pass people on a grade up here in Colorado and Utah and things like that, it makes it a very pleasurable driving experience. It's not a race car, but it's definitely got quite a bit more power to it. And then when you get to sea level, then that's where the excitement starts. So, but that's our horsepower modifications. We try not to get into the motors. We're not engine tuners. We just try to get the supercharger to do its job and provide us some very reliable horsepower. Kind of moving over to the power that supplies energy to the truck is an off-grid engineering dual battery system. And this is one of the earlier versions of what Matt was doing over there, and I really like it. We've refined a few things here and there with this particular truck, and we do things slightly different on the newer trucks. But speaking of which, this is a side-by-side system, so these Group 34 batteries are sitting right next to each other, and it's very, very heavy on the fender itself, on the inner fender itself. So we tend to now split the batteries. We put one on keep the starting battery here where it is originally, and then we put the other battery either on the other side of the engine compartment where you see the S-pod and fuse block, or we usually hide it in the bed, or we can hide it behind a rear seat if there's a rear seat delete or something like that. We can put the other Group 34 battery anywhere else really on the vehicle, and keep the engine compartment fairly light. And that's kind of what's helped us validate why we do that, just because of the weight of two batteries in one location. And as you can see, it's pretty tight in there too. So trying to spread it out a little bit and open up the engine compartment. We run an ARB compressor here just for the lockers. We have a separate onboard air system we'll show you in a minute, but this ARB locker is just for running the front and rear lockers. And powering or charging all of the dual battery systems that we're doing now, with the dual battery kits we're putting together, we want to make sure we can charge them. So we're working with DC Power on their billet alternators. For body armor on the mid section of the truck, we're running the RCI sliders, and these have a slight taper up to them, fairly narrow or close to the truck around the driver and passenger door, but then you get towards the bed and there's a little kick out there, and you can kind of see the scratches on there. You know, we do use the sliders a little bit, scratches underneath, and it also provides a pretty good step. One thing that I've really liked about this truck, we've had 3 different wrap colors on it, I believe, since we first built it. And this particular color was my cousin's favorite color, is a gunmetal gray. So this is a matte metallic gunmetal gray wrap that we've got on this truck. And as you can see, when the sun hits it, it looks great with it still being a matte and a subdued looking color. Works really well with the titanium of the Method wheels. We've run several different roof racks on this truck, but one that I've found works the most versatile by far and is the Front Runner Outfitters rack. This is a standard 4-door, crew cab roof rack. It's the low profile version, so you don't have the room to slide a table underneath. But we have it, because of the camper, we have it moved forward 1 slat. So this forward mounting position would normally be on this slat, and the whole thing would be back by 1. But we moved it forward just a little bit, and you can see how perfect it lines up in front of the AT habitat. But it also allows us real estate to mount our Baja Designs S2 Pro work lights off the side. I can reach out of my window and I can turn this wherever I need it, up or down. While we're at camp, or if I'm looking for a spot at camp, I can do that right over my head, and it kind of works out really well. It gives us really good real estate as well for our Zargus case. Used to run a Pelican case up here in the beginning, but the Zargus case is for the storage space, and its weight is extremely lightweight, very strong. It is lockable on these latches, and there's only 2 latches. So you can just pop these loose and then throw your lid up. We keep camp chairs in here, recovery gear, soft shackles, kinetic rope, all kinds of stuff like that. Stuff you can get to very easily, and the Zargus cases give you the most real estate for the weight. You can't even really compare anything else to it, and it fits perfectly within the lip of this particular roof rack. And we hard mount that from the inside, so it just stays there. It's lightweight. You don't really even realize it's there until you need it. With all of our wiring, we try to hide everything the best we possibly can. If you have a light, you're going to have wires. So we group everything together. Instead of running zip ties all down the rack, we wanted to have some Velcro strips, kind of clean it up a little bit, but these aren't going to break in the sunlight. And then you'll have your wire loom just kind of hanging all over the roof. But we also kind of tuck that away down the A-pillar on both sides of the windshield to kind of keep everything really clean and tight, and then kind of hide it away into the engine compartment and send it where it needs to go. On the other side, on the passenger side of the truck, this is where I keep our max tracks. I keep 2 pairs, so we've got 4 here all together, but you can move these tie-down rings from Front Runner anywhere you want to on the roof rack. And I use these Stratchets all the time. These things are great because you can just pull them loose. They have a little bit of elasticity to them. But if you've had to use your max tracks and they're covered in snow, or there's snow or mud or something packed in behind it, you can just throw them on the roof real quick. They can just set however they're going to sit, and you don't have to worry about them being super tight together. Throw your straps over it, and then you're good. You can also deploy it really quickly. If you just need to pull these loose, you can pop them loose, take your carabiner off, and then throw them down on the ground and use them. So this has just been a really good way to keep them tight. They don't move, they don't rattle. If you need to lock them down, you can run a cable through the handles, through the roof rack, and it's secured. You don't have to worry about it. All right, moving on back for the rear of the truck, where you're looking at McNeil Racing bedsides. They have the same amount of flare, about 4 inches or so from a stock bedside, and we have Line-X of Albuquerque do Line-X on the top to where it looks like a bed cap. Just extend that down about an inch around the top edge, because that, believe it or not, makes a pretty good workbench. So then we can wrap up to that and make a really good clean seam. Using the factory fuel door blends right into the bedsides, fiberglass bedsides, and then the wheel opening you can see is definitely larger than a factory wheel opening on a factory bed, and that helps us with stuffing this 37 up in there. And we have it limited. The compression travel we have limited with a King air bump. It's a 2-inch air bump in a Total Chaos air bump bracket, and then you can also see the Total Chaos shock tower that we're working with back there. This is a 2.5-inch diameter by 12-inch travel King with high-speed compression adjusters on it. The custom Alcan leaf spring, I can't even remember what the spring rate is on this now, because we've changed it so many times to feel the way I wanted it to, holding the load of the camper and the gear inside and all that stuff. So I'd have to look in our cut card, which we have for every customer, and see what the spring rate, the final spring rate, ended up being on this set of leaf springs. You can probably see in there right now too that there is an LRA, long range fuel tank. It's about 33 gallon fuel tank in this that goes in the factory location, and it's a tight fit, but it goes right in the factory location. It doesn't hang down any lower than the factory tank, and it's incredibly strong, so we don't even run a skid plate on it. You could fab a skid plate for it, but we don't really do that. I mean, I've never really had to worry too much about slamming my skid plate on, or my fuel tank on something. Not to say that it couldn't happen, but even if you did hit it, and you bent it, you could be bending it back, or you could have it repaired. What also helps the spring rate in this, since this truck has had to do so many different things, from hauling a trailer to so many different types of campers and canopies and things like that, we were running a floating airbag system in this. So if we're headed uphill, or we're climbing up something for quite a while, or we need a little more support over the rear axle, as far as spring rate goes, I can inflate these airbags from the driver's seat with a switch, and I can see how many PSI I'm putting into the airbags, and it creates quite a bit more spring rate as a helper spring as you're climbing up, and it can raise the truck back up off the ground if it's squatted down on its suspension while you're going uphill. So it works out really, really well. We've used that quite a bit. For gears in this truck, as I mentioned in the front diff, the rear diff is a little unique on these. This is a billet Ford 9-inch rear diff. It is also running a 529 gear ratio, and this is what we would normally put in our stage 3. Stage 3 is there to, like I mentioned, to address all the weak links. This diff is one of them. We had a pretty catastrophic failure in Baja with the factory ring and pinion, losing the ring gear. Lost 7 ring gear bolts, and we found that out the hard way in Baja when one of them punched out of the rear diff housing. So that's where the Curry F9 housing comes in. The Curry F9 housing is something we were working on with them, and I wanted to really have the strongest housing I could get. So we had these spec'd out with a custom width, depending on whether you go on the 2-inch wide Total Chaos setup or the 3.5-inch wide Total Chaos setup, this axle housing is a full width to match the front. This particular one has a backbone bracing built into it. We locate our own shock mounts in the bottom so we can rotate everything up and out from underneath the axle as far as possible, and that really drastically increases your ground clearance. All the U-bolt flip kit is by Archive Garage, which also does the shackle hanger, the hammer shackle and the hammer shackle hanger, and the crossbar that greatly stiffens up the back of the truck and supports the rear frame of the truck and the shackle hangers themselves. But that also afforded us the opportunity on the Tacomas to run a custom rear brake kit that is by SOS Performance. You know, it's the rear half of the front comes as a kit, but it's a 4-piston caliper and and rotor disc brake conversion for the Tacomas. It's an incredible, drastic increase in braking power for these trucks. The axle shafts themselves are 35 spline chromoly axle shafts, and we're running a factory Toyota unit bearing, which allows us to run our speed sensors, you know, ABS sensors and all that stuff. So there are no lights on in the dash. Everything works like it does from the factory. But we do make all of our own hard lines, brake lines, and all that stuff to make it fit. This rear bumper is somewhat unique. It's a CBI rear bumper that had dual swing outs on it, but it was modified because at the time when we had this made, we were running a 4-wheel camper, and the 4-wheel camper stuck out just a little bit. With the tailgate off, we modified our swing outs that actually wrapped around the back of the camper, so we could still have dual swing outs at the time with a 4-wheel camper on here and hold a 37-inch spare. Since then, I've really wanted to see if there was a way I could carry everything I had on the swing outs somewhere else on the truck to help balance the truck a little bit better. And that's why you will see the 2 pins on the back of this bumper kind of just wrapped in 550 cord, because we don't really even use the swing outs anymore. That's just there for looks. But kind of moving down a little bit, Baja Designs S2 Pro flush mounts, those are on their own switch. So if I use them almost every single day backing into my driveway at night, I can flip those on real quick, and it turns the entire driveway into a spotlight, which is really nice. In the bed of the truck, this is basically our living room, because we're running an AT Habitat on this truck, 6-foot bed. So this is the long bed for the Tacoma. But as you can see, this is how we have it laid out. Dometic CFX fridge, one of the little bit earlier CFX versions fridge, works amazing. We've used them all over the place in Baja and everything else in direct sunlight, and it's done really well. Just a bed mat, rubber bed mat. We normally have a piece of carpet that we took out of our house, just set down here if we are camping, but I've been using this as a truck lately, so we just pull that out of there. Yeti cooler up here for some of the drinks and ice when you do want an actual cooler instead of a fridge freezer. As you can see up forward, we're running a 37-inch spare with a Wilco tire mount, and that tire mount is super sweet. I love this thing. We use it on several of our other builds, but it's very low profile, non-intrusive, and I can keep that 37-inch spare mounted to the front of the bed and just kind of roll it out, you know, have it moved over to the side. That case that's sitting right there is one of our earlier dual compressor setups that is plumbed into an air tank underneath the bed. So I do all of my onboard air ups and downs from right there. I've got all my air tools in the box, dual of air compressors and everything right there. A gauge so I can see my tank mount or tank pressure and all of that. So it's a really good working spot for that. On the side, I've got from Solo Motorsports, I mounted a tray with a jack, a racing jack with a skid on it. So we pull the wheels off, put a skid on it, and it just sits up there in the front corner of the bed. Fairly easy to get to and out of the way. For storage over here, we've been working with Grayman Tactical, so we kind of made a custom, took one of their universal panels and we mounted it to the bulkhead of the AT. The bulkhead on these ATs are really thick, so we can riv nut threaded insert into the side of it, and we can mount all of this to it, and it doesn't bounce or move around. As many of you know, we've been working with Multicam Cry Precision on a build we did for them, and we're running some of their plate carrier pouches and stuff right on the MOLLE panel, so all the MOLLE's kind of designed to work together. So we're running one of these pouches on there just for camp gear, things like that, chain for a chainsaw up there. But one of the tools I really do love the most is my demo shovel. It's kind of a custom little way of storing it. They actually have a much better mount for this that I'm going to put on the other side. But this is their Delta shovel. You just pull the handle out from here, connect it to the shovel, do work with it, clean it off, throw it back up there, and you're good to go. And you can see we use this thing. You know, this is a earlier Delta shovel that we've gotten. But all of this right here, I left the cord plugged in here so you can kind of see, when camp is set, you've got 12 volt plug here, 2 USBs here, tells your battery voltage here, so you can charge your iPhones, iPads, whatever you need to there. We put some of our own switches. I'll show you what these switches do here in a second, but all this is powered, so you've got power over here. We ran constant power over there for our fridge, so we modified our plug so there's constant power with this small Anderson plug, and it doesn't come undone when you're on the trail. So we can hook up 2 Anderson plugs like that for other accessories if we need it. Keep 2 front runner expander chairs in that case right there. It's a perfect little spot for them. Some real comfortable chairs for at camp, and they're table height as well. So if you're sitting at a front runner table at camp or something like that, you can just throw those chairs out. The reason I wanted to open this up is so you could kind of see what the scale of what this would look like with a full-size 37-inch tire in the bed of the truck. So if I'm standing up in here, I have the whole camper still. The bed is up in front of me. We keep a lot of our clothes and stuff up on this compartment here. So the spare is right up against this bulkhead, and you can reach everything that's in front of it. So it's really not a big deal. We can cook, do whatever we need to on this sleep platform that actually does expand open. Found Zoe's hat. But you can see, I mean, there's a full-on sleep platform right here so another person could sleep. Nothing's really in the way. You can take the cooler out and set it outside anyway, so you have that much more space. And we've just been super happy with, like, this is the camper. The AT Habitat is probably one of my favorite campers I've ever used. I mean, it's so perfect for something like this. And I mean, we're out here full on rock crawling with this thing, and it's a camper. You know, you could have all the creature comforts of home right here and get out and do the most aggressive riding you could possibly need to do on a trip. It's been fun working with multicam on these projects because the camper turned out great with multicam black, and pretty much all of our company vehicles are multicam black and some sort of gray. It blends real well on the Zargus case and the hood blackout and everything else. And Mike over at Revive Wraps just absolutely killed it on the camper and the truck, and he really gets the stuff. We always put him under a time crunch, and he's always able to deliver for us. Poor guy puts in some late nights, so I really appreciate all of his effort there. In storage of this truck, I needed a place for tools, and we have a dog, so I pretty much wanted to do the 60% seat delete from Goose Gear, and we got the floor portion of it, which has a cool little access hatch here. If you ended up closing off the side, you can use your little access hatch here, pull that up, and access stuff below it. But I can put tools, longer tools underneath there and still access them from right here. The drawer itself is a little bit of a custom dimension drawer we were able to trim and fit and make an existing Goose Gear drawer fit in here the way this one does. But the drawer comes out 100% all the way to the end, and we have tools, whatever else we need, we'll blanket, just random stuff. But you can set up a galley box, whatever you want, fridge on top of it, and you could have a drop-down fridge slide or something, so you could set up galley stuff inside this. Another Cry Precision pouch with compass, some Velcro straps, matches, camp stuff, binos. Very important fire extinguisher that anyone in any occupant in the vehicle can grab. So it's just slid down into a Cry Precision bottle holder, and it's a nice little spot for it. But our dog's bed just lays right on top of it. My daughter sits in her car seat on the other side, and everybody's got a nice, comfortable little spot. Everybody's in the driver's seat. This is a very personal space for a lot of folks, and everybody has their own layout on how they want things to be. With this truck, I kind of have a lot of different things. I wanted it to be as subdued as possible. So, like a radio, this really doesn't usually live here. This is just for like trail use. Just little magnet mount, Scotch magnet mount, just kind of clip it right to that, or magnet it to it. But other than that, this is normally what you would see. I've got a tourniquet here on the grab handle and the A pillar, kind of working my way from left to right. the supercharger requires a programmer, so this particular one ended up coming with a Bully Dog programmer right here, which is actually pretty cool because you can read codes, you can see transmission temp, you can see some vitals on that, and it's not too intrusive. It's just a really small little screen that can actually just be unplugged and moved away. Kind of moving around, keen eye will see that this steering wheel is not stock for 2009. I actually kind of took this out of a wrecked vehicle, and it's a more comfortable steering wheel than a 2009. But kind of coming over, we're working with Garmin on the Overlander. It's a nice little magnet mount. You can also see right here the Wii Boost antenna, which is centrally located in the vehicle, so right behind it, you don't even really see it. So this is a pretty cool unit. We're tracking our whole route out here as we're wheeling, and you can save info, download maps, things like that. Everybody gets real picky about their GPS units, but this does exactly what I need it to do, and it's been a cool little unit to have. The head unit is definitely just one. The other one started to go bad on me, so put this Sony head unit in here, tucked all the auxiliary wires away behind the dash, and kind of cleaned all that up. The kind of down here in the cup holder area, you can see this is the switch I was talking about for the airbags in the back. If I have air in the tanks, I can push that button and I can increase the air pressure in the back. As you can see, the air pressure going up. It's about 30 psi back there now. If I want to purge it, I just push it down. Just like that. And that creates some spring rate in the back if I need it. And you can do that by feel. If you're driving, you can just increase it if you need it and then purge it out if you need to. For a lot of our dual battery systems, I like to have a switch mounted inside the vehicle. So this right here will link both of your batteries together. You can see two batteries on here. If you have it in the off position, your solenoid is disconnected. You might have been able to hear that click. Your starting battery will start the truck right here. If your starting battery dies, or if you want to keep it to where the solenoid is engaged, you can just keep it on auto, and it will do its own job and it'll charge both batteries. You'll hear it click on. But if you need to jump start yourself because your starting battery is dead, you can just hit that button, you hear your solenoid click on, now you can jump start your... One very important aspect to these vehicles is the Revelco anti-theft device. This is basically a fob you can just take out, and you take this with you, and this truck can't be stolen unless somebody lifts it off the ground, and they can't start it and drive it away. It's not a car alarm, but it is hooked up to power. So you can pull that and it does not kill the power in the truck, it just kills the ability for somebody to start it and drive it away. It's basically an overall kill switch. The switching in this truck is very simple. ARB locker compressor, front and rear lockers, right there by your hand if you need them. Use them if you need to get through something, and then take them off. For storage up here in the headliner, sun visor, there's a Blue Ridge Overland Gear little sun visor storage piece in here. Keep all my paperwork for the truck and stuff right up inside here. A little Leatherman, a little toothpick, and pen and a flashlight. It's pretty much all we have up here. The S-Pod itself is a universal. I like this because it's a physical switch, so I don't have to look up here to see which switch is which. I just have it memorized, and I can reach up by feel, and I can turn it on or off as I need to. And then kind of just moving up to the top, Vinny put some of his tabs in here, and I left them here for him, and that's part of his truck, and that's in honor of him as to this entire build and everything behind all the hard work all of us have put into this thing and what it does for our company. And so in honor to him, we want to leave all of his stuff in here and as a reminder.